When I was a young monk, I also had a dream, a wish, much smaller than the dream of Martin Luther King, but it's very dear to me. I wanted to build a Sangha, and where there is brotherhood, sisterhood, living together. Because I had the intuition that you cannot do anything, you cannot realize anything without a Sangha. And we know that the Buddha himself, Shakyamuni, after enlightenment, the first thing he tried to do is to go and build a Sangha. Without a Sangha, a Buddha cannot do much. Even a Buddha cannot do much. So my dream is to build a Sangha, a real Sangha, a true Sangha, where is harmony and happiness. And my conviction is that if the Sangha has unity, harmony and happiness, it can do everything it wants. It did not precise something like national independence, equality, freedom, jobs. It did not have precise ideas like that. But there is a deep conviction, if there is a Sangha, there is a community where harmony, brotherhood, sisterhood, and happiness is, and then we can do a lot of things. 50 years ago, Martin Luther King gave that famous speech in Washington, D.C., I have a dream. And today, exactly 50 years after, I went through many wars. The first war is between the Vietnamese and the French, and the second is between the Vietnamese and Americans. And I saw a lot of destruction. And the fact that I am still sitting here today is a miracle, because many of us have died during the war, including monks and nuns. And many of us try to serve in the non-violent movement, trying to help refugees, setting up refugee camps and helping people to survive during the war, caring for the victims of war, and helping people who are so poor. We had the School of Youth for Social Service, where young monks, nuns, and lay people learn and try to help in a situation of war. And many of us got killed. Many students of mine, monks, nuns, and lay people get killed during their service. They threw a grenade into my room, and I was not killed. The curtain pushed it back on the next door. My dream is to build a Sangha. And when the country was divided into North and South, the North was communist, the South is anti-communist. That's when the United States of America become involved in Vietnam. So there is a lot of confusion in the mind of young people, including the monks and the nuns. They don't know where to go, because there are two kinds of ideologies opposing each other: capitalism, communism. And where do we have to stand? So in that state of confusion, the administration of the Buddhist Institute asked me to come and help. And I had the first occasion to organize a Sangha according to my vision. And I continue to reflect on the art of building a Sangha. During the war, workers of the School of Youth for Social Service have to engage themselves in very dangerous situations. And we try to set up a center of practice so that after a few months of work, they have a chance to withdraw and rebuild themselves, recover their peace, heal themselves in order to be sent again to serve. And we know that the practice center is very important for our social workers. And many of us have died. Many of us have been deeply wounded by the war. In June the 1st, 1965, I wrote to Martin Luther King a letter. That was when I was working in the School of Youth for Social Service. I had built the first Buddhist university in Vietnam, Van Hanh University. Van Hanh is the name of a Zen teacher. In the 11th century. I wrote to King about the self-immolation of the monks in Vietnam, because both warring parties wanted to fight to the end, and we are caught in the middle. We don't want the war. What we wanted is the cessation of hostilities. And we do not have a voice. We did not have magazine, radio, television. So our voice is lost in the bombs and in the anger, in the fear. And that is why sometimes we have to burn ourselves alive in order to get the message across. Thích Quảng Đức burned himself to say that we want peace. We want the stopping of the killing. And only when we burn ourselves like that, the New York Times, the Associated Press, writers will write about that. And that is why from time to time we have to burn ourselves as a means for communication. We did not have newspaper. We did not have radio. So I wrote to King explaining the meaning of the self-immolation. That is not an act of violence. That is an act of sacrifice in order to help with the awakening of the world about the suffering of the people in Vietnam. And I told him that our struggle for peace in Vietnam has the same nature with the struggle in America for human rights, for civil rights. And exactly one year after I wrote the letter in June 1st, 1965. And June 1st, 1966, I met King in Chicago. Cornell University invited me to come and give a series of talks about the situation in Southeast Asia. And I had a chance to tour in America to talk about the suffering of Vietnamese people. We do not want the war, we want peace. The police officer, when giving me the passport, he said, "Don't say anything about peace." And my only purpose of going to America is to talk about peace. So I just kept silent. And we conversed with each other in Chicago, and he came out after that against the war in Vietnam. The last time we met is in Geneva, in a conference for peace called Past Cemeteries, Peace on Earth. He stayed on the 11th floor of the building, and I was in the first floor. He invited me to come the next day for breakfast. And that morning I was caught by a few journalists, so I came late, and he kept the breakfast warm for me. That is our last meeting before he got killed. And I was able to tell him that the people in Vietnam admire him and call him a bodhisattva, a great being. He was pleased to hear that. And we discussed about Sangha building. Because we know that without the Sangha, we cannot go very far. And the expression that he used is the beloved community, the beloved community. I was in New York when King was assassinated. I was angry. And I got sick after that. And I told myself that King is gone, I have to continue. So I vowed that I will continue the work of Sangha building. Because without the Sangha, we cannot do much. We follow the example of the Buddha. And I could not go home because I had spoken out for peace, and they did not allow me to go home anymore. And I had to be in exile for 40 years. 40 years in exile. I was evicted out of my Sangha. And it's like a cell in the body taken out of the body. If I did not practice well, and then I will dry up like a bee without a beehive. So since Vietnam is at war with America, I cannot take refuge in America. So I asked for asylum, political asylum in France. So I started to be with Sangha. We started an office working for peace, and we began the practice of sitting, walking, meditation, and so on. Our office is in the Rue de la Goutte d'Or in Paris. And in the beginning, we did not have a place to practice sitting meditation. We had to ask the Quaker Center in Paris to allow us to use it, to make use of it for sitting meditation. I was prevented to go back to Vietnam. There was one time when I was in America, touring the country and speaking about peace. Someone from the Baltimore Sun came to me and said, "Do you know something, Thầy? The government of Vietnam just informed France, the United States of America, and Great Britain, that my passport is no longer valid. They should not honor that passport anymore. They invalidate my passport, so that I cannot go around and speak about peace anymore. And that journalist asked me whether I like to go on hiding myself. Sister Trương Không was in Costa Rica doing the same thing, speaking about peace. I asked her to come and prepare so that when I land in Paris, people they won't deport me to Vietnam in order to go in jail. So I arranged so that I could take political asylum in France. And during the 40 years outside in exile, I tried my best to build a Sangha. And now there is a monastic Sangha of about 800 or 900. And a lay Sangha, we don't know how many. You are part of my Sangha. There are more than 1,000 communities of mindful living across the continents. And we have trained monastic Dharma teachers. We have trained lay Dharma teachers. And we have practice centers many places. And the Sangha, the work of Sangha building has not stopped since that time. Now the practice of mindfulness began to penetrate into the mainstream. We have trained many school teachers so that they can bring that practice into school and help the students to suffer less. Doctors, nurses, social workers, psychotherapists, many of them have been using the practice in order to improve their practice. And we have elaborated the practice of global ethics, so that everyone, regardless of religion, nationality, can make use of it. How to release the tension in the body, how to produce a feeling of joy, of happiness, how to handle a painful feeling, a painful emotion, how to restore communication and reconcile. All these kind of things can be done without asking someone to become a Buddhist or so. So this is what the Sangha has done in the last many years.